itself to ensure that the goals, and the president has listed the goals as unemployment, poverty, inequality.
But isn't that what we are already?
We are not a developmental state, we are a developing state, and we are a state that is coming out of an apartheid state that is trying to transform to address these matters. That's why we have the National Development Plan,
right,
which sets a vision of 2030.
But I'm trying to understand how we will know we have become a developmental state versus becoming a developmental state, because right now all of the priorities that you've pointed out have been the priorities of the government since 1994.
If you look at all developmental states previously, like Japan, countries like Malaysia and so on, they don't actually declare a vision to be a developmental state. They actually are identified by achieving the goals of development, that they are developmental states. So as we progress on this road ourselves, analysts and even the people, as they feel the impact, will actually, because it's meant to change their lives, will actually say we're a developmental state. We have started to make ourselves upfront by declaring it as a goal. But it's actually through achievements that it will be shown.
Mr. Shingang, the unions have supported this move towards being a developmental state. Why have you supported it, and what value do you see in the process itself?
No, thank you. It's for a number of reasons. Like the chairperson have already said that there are goals that the government since 1994 will have identified as that which the state must deliver to the people of South Africa. But the capacity and the hand of the state needed to be strengthened in order for it to intervene in the economy, in order for it to intervene in the delivery of the basic needs, services that the population needs. If you look what has happened, including increasing the size of the state to go with the growing population of the country, because if you remember that in 1994, with a population of about 40 million, the public service, including the TBVC state and also the homeless that were there, was about 1.4 million. But the government then, around 96, took decisions, remember the introduction of GEAR, which was moving away from the policy that was there earlier called RDP. It reduced the public servants when the population was growing, but the public servants were reduced into 900,000. So that you can't have a capacity of the state that is equal to the growing population, then you can't go into a developmental state. Yes.
But fast forward, 22 years this year of our democracy, and I saw a rather ridiculous statistic the other day that we've got around about 14,000 service delivery protests in 1 year alone. And that is an alarming amount of service delivery protests. So if you've got the state setting the agenda saying we want to be a developmental state, that's what the government has said as per the vision that you outlined, and you've got the will from politicians all speaking the same language and all talking about what we need to become, why is it that we're not seeing that on the ground? Why is it that service delivery is still such an issue in South Africa?
Well, it is an issue because we are also a growing population. I mean, he says we're 40 million in 94. We're 50-something now, 51 million now. And what is true is that in one way, there are two measurements. If you measure us from where we come from and you look at the government's 20-year review, you would find that really there's been achievement. Roads are running. There's a lot of electricity that has been extended to people. Water has been delivered to people. But as that growth goes, the resources are limited. And now with also the economic challenges, we are growing at less than 1%. You find that there are more needs that people want and more growth. So there is delivery on the other side, which is happening. But there is growing needs of people that must be addressed, and we've not been able to have sufficient resources to address that, except that, of course, there have been other problems of the state, like corruption and other matters that limit and affect the usage of those resources.
Now, in comes the Public Service Commission. You are trying to improve things. You're trying to make sure that the public service runs smoothly. What would you say the performance of the public service has been like since 1994, in view or in lieu of what you've just said now, that it depends on which angle you're coming from? You know, you can either say we've underperformed or we've actually done quite well. What is the view of the Commission on that?
The view of the Commission is actually the same like the NDP, we think that the performance has been uneven. There have been good, excellent places like Home Affairs. If you look at their rate now, how they achieve on IDs, you look at SARS, how much it has collected, over $1 trillion now. And you look at, for instance, even the administration of social welfare, and I've already mentioned the infrastructure delivery that has been extended. It has been excellent, but there have been challenges that are based on the limited skills that the public service have, challenges that are based on the issue of resources, challenges that are based on corruption that have limited the growth which would have achieved. So we are not where we should have been, but we are further than where we started. And
what is the assessment of the unions on that, particularly yours?
We agree that there's been uneven, but we think there's been more problems than progress, mainly deriving from the policy choices that our government will have taken. Instead of, as I said, strengthening the hands of the state in order to intervene, we have seen a policy of outsourcing of the services that otherwise were supposed to be rendered by the state. We have seen the over-reliance by the state on consultants, spending huge amount of money on the private individuals whose only interest is to accumulate profit instead of seeing that it's a need to deliver to people.
But the state argues many times that it's a capacity issue. You know, the skills that we're looking for are outside, so we've got to outsource.
It's not true. The South African civil servants are sought after in most of the English-speaking countries worldwide. Right. You will see how our nurses, you will see how our police are all over in Canada, in England, everywhere. The very same nurses that these people say they are not skilled here. They are performing very well internationally.
That's a lovely positive point to just break on. We've got to take a short break. We have to pay our bills. We're back after this.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, you're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime news amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon, you're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News Channel.
And we're talking about the public service and how it's functioning, and we'd love to hear from you. If you want to give us your thoughts on social media, you can find us on Facebook at Interface on SABC, or on Twitter at Tembisa Magele, or at Interface on SABC. Now, we're talking to Advocate Richard Sizane, who is the chairperson of the Public Service Commission, and also Mike Shingange, who is the deputy president of NEHAO. And one of the questions I wanted to pose to you is that if you ask, particularly those in the private sector and many in the public sector as well, they'll tell you that the development of South Africa is largely hindered by the unions that we have and the power that the unions wield in South Africa, because they just make it difficult to hire, to fire, they make it difficult to function. What would your response be to that?
There's no developmental state that will make it easy for employees in that country to fire its employees. To fire its employees. That will be 1 or 10 steps backwards in terms of the project of making a developmental state.
But what they're arguing is that you make it difficult to even fire those that are really not productive, and you make it very difficult for people to hire the kind of skills that they need.
Unions can never make it difficult. because unions don't develop their own laws in this country. There are statutes and laws and the labor relations policies in these countries that have been developed by all of us, labor, employers, and private sector included. The only thing that the unions are doing are enforcing the adherence to the laws and that governs the labor relations or the labor relations in the workplace and the democratizations of the workplaces. What we're saying is that we're coming from an era where employees' rights were not respected in these countries. Indeed, you need, for you in particular, when we talk to the state employees, you need to have what we call job security. You need to have certainty. You need to have stability. If you're going to go to a workplace where you don't know whether tomorrow you're going to be fired or not, then you can't be concentrated. You can't be productive. That's what we're doing. So, in fact, part of the things that we need to strengthen in this country is this thing of, as I said, outsourcing and casualizations and agentization of the state, wherein people work for the state but work for the third party, in fact, but are rendering services to the state, but their job is not guaranteed.
Mr. Sizani, have the unions hurt or helped South Africa over the past 22 years?
It is the members of unions and those public servants largely at the levels, especially of from level 2 to level 12 deputy directors who have actually been put the task of performance. There has been, of course, a gap between the productivity and the value for money, which is what government is trying to achieve.
But what role have the unions played in that?
The unions have played the role that the unions have to play in society of actually fighting for the rights of their members or ensuring that their labor rights are protected, which is a protected right in the Constitution.
But have they been too strong? Have they helped or hurt this economy in particular?
I don't think they have hurt the economy. I think there are a number of factors that have actually created the challenges we're in. There has been the question of lack of redistribution of the resources, questions of addressing land, questions of getting growth. There has been a problem that also affects unions, the issue of productivity. That is why we have been negotiating, and we had now a service charter that we negotiated with them, where we try to actually work on service standards that will ensure that we measure productivity against the value for money that we're actually paying. Because I must say, with due respect to what the Deputy President of NEHAW has said, that we are actually one of the most paying employers as government. Government is paying its employees very well. But it's not really sure to a certain extent whether we get our money's worth.
Yeah, that's a point I wanted to come. Look, there's this argument that has been hyped about by the state, particularly the Treasury, that South African employees, in particular public service, are the most highly paid employees. That's number one. Or the wage bill is very high. But if you look at the brackets of the categories of the employees where that wage bill goes, it's not your bottom level of the employees. It's not those who are in the front line. It's not those who travel a lot. It will be that layer that is mostly managerial, that is bloated, that is, even if they can be skilled in terms of qualifications, but it's unexperienced in the public service. They enter at the level of the management without understanding what is the public service all about.
But
and you
with
find
all fairness to the government, though, on the other hand, you'll have people saying, in order for the public service to work really well, you have to attract skills that can do the job, and you have to pay for those skills.
No, I agree. So that's why I'm saying it becomes an unfair argument when you talk to the issue of the highly paid, as if it's everybody in the state is getting highly paid. That's number one. But number two, what we have been looking for about the capacity, the efficiency of the state, as you asked, as if when we entered into the discussions about the charter, the public sector charter, is that you need efficiency at the management level. The people who make decisions about what skills does the state need to invest in? Because the state must invest in its own employees in terms of the continuous development. And there is a Skill Development Act that talks to that thing that is not being implemented. Secondly, the infrastructure and the facilities that which the employees have to go about in order to deliver the service are very appalling. So you may have a skilled employee that sits there, maybe it's a nurse, maybe it's a police who do not have a car to respond to the needs of the community, or you do not have a proper police station in order to serve it. You may have a teacher that has got no school, he teaches under the tree, and you're not going to talk about the value for money in terms of what you pay for that teacher, but they're not going to talk about the conditions under which that teacher teaches.
Right. We've got to take another short break, but before we do that, you brought up the NDP earlier, and it's trying to address the very issues that he's raising. But the NDP, like others before it, great document on paper, but very difficult when it comes to the implementation thereof. What will it take for us to actually make sure that what is in the NDP actually gets implemented in the public service in particular?
I must say that as I'm sitting here, part of our role is to monitor implementation of government plans and the constitution and legislation in every aspect of the NDP in government now. There are working teams, there are groups, there are policies that are implementing it. If you look at the medium-term strategic framework, the 3-year plan of government, all the requirements and suggestions that are put by the NDP are in that plan.
But South Africa is notorious for having working group after working group after working group. But when do we start to feel it on the ground as the people?
Well, because even this year, the medium-term strategic framework and the budgets that are put in order to achieve those goals.
So as the Commission, you can say that you are seeing progress on the NDP?
We are seeing progress, which I can identify in a number of areas.
All right, we have to take another short break. We're back after this.
They are basically arresting him, continue to arrest him on behalf of the apartheid government.
We are dealing with effects. We are not dealing with the causes. And for as long as we deal with effects, we are never going to solve this problem.
What do these people need in prison? Why are they there? The PAC, as Dr. Pegu is saying, has been seeking answers, and they're not coming.
What kind of answers are you getting?
I really think I've answered that question.
I think it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for it. How was it possible that they could operate with such impunity?
The only thing you want is closure.
The only thing we want is closure. And unfortunately, I don't really have sympathy for the idea that if you're too old, you shouldn't stand trial.
That's Rights and Recourse with Dumile Mateza every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central African Time, only on the SABC News Channel.
Hindu devotees took a holy dip at Sangam, the confluence of rivers Ganges. People and priests made their way to the banks before the break of dawn. Security arrangements were in place for police forces patrolling on the river banks to ensure smooth functioning of the event.
A mobile museum in India's West Mumbai is highlighting the skills and creativity of residents of one of Asia's largest slums.
That's what we've been doing here, is creating this platform. And we came here to help it develop and to, just build it up.
Welcome back. We're talking about the public service. Is it efficient? Have you been getting the kind of improvement and help that you need from your government departments? If so, let us know about it. If not, tell us how they can improve by finding us on our social media pages. But if you are to believe media reports, Mr. Shingangi, South Africa is headed towards that very undesirable state of blending politics and administration. And I only have to say to you, state capture, to put you in the picture on that. Have we crossed the line where we are doing what we should not be doing as a state, where in the administration there are politics, and there is the state capture that everybody's fearing?
I don't know if your question talks to the current debate about the state capture, because I would have thought that that's a different question when you say blending politics and the administration, because remember how government and the state relates. Government gets formed through every 5 years. When it goes to political parties, go to the people and contest election and say this is the policy we're going to implement in the state. So a party gets given a mandate because of the policy that it sells to the people, that go to the state, implement your policies as part of
yes,
it.
That's
So
the
the state is there.
That's the theoretical aspect of it. What
yes.
I'm asking about is, for example, you get Nkandla, where it's a hot political issue, but it has bled into the administration, where government departments have been brought into it, and the administration thereof has been brought into question.
The angle I would like to take on that thing is what we have always fought against as COSATU, and of course everybody in society that talks to corruption, and including the inflation of prices for everything that the state has to buy. I mean, something that you can buy for 18 rand yourself in the shop, if it's the state, you're going to buy it for 180,000 rand. So that's the thing that we've been fighting for. And of course, we can't deny that there are political interest or economic interest of politicians in those deals that happens. And when we have been crying as COSATU long before this new fashionable debate about the state capture, but that we think that some sections of the state has been captured by various interests, including business interests. I mean, you will have seen that how government, executive, or even the ruling party will take a decision that, in our view, will have been very progressive in order to address to make the state, in fact, to intervene in society. But how Treasury will think otherwise. Treasury will act otherwise. The Treasury will perform, will give budget otherwise from what every minister will say. The Minister of Health will talk about the National Health Insurance, and he thinks the Minister of Social Development will talk about something that they needs to intervene. But when it goes to Treasury, so we have been crying about that. That section of the state may probably been captured by we have. But we agree, even now, that politicians will have been captured. That politicians, I mean, there's the debate now whether the state president is captured or not.
Right. Mr. Sizani, what are your thoughts from the Commission?
Well, the Commission's entry in this level would be a question. It's a different question from what we are asking. Would be in the sense of what we call political administrative interface.
Right.
And the question there is whether we ignore merit in appointments and only follow political deployments. That is how it has been phrased within the mandate of the Public Service Commission. The mandate is that the Constitution as of now and the legal framework that has been created allows appointments that have policy or political consideration, at least at the senior echelons like DTG and DG.
Is that a good thing for a state that wants to be a developmental state?
It's not a bad thing in the sense that any country that wants to develop, and especially a developmental state, would need a public service that is professional, but that has also values that are about serving the people, that it would share and understand the political instruction, so to say, or mandate that it should carry. You can't have an insulated, totally bureaucracy that doesn't. So, but what has been emphasized, and in the new delegations framework that has been set by government, is that yes, there are policy consideration, but those people must also be properly qualified.
All right. And back to my question then, is our state being captured?
By who?
It's a topic that's out there, that the state is being captured. You spoke about some aspects or pockets of it being captured. What is your
Certainly,
view?
I could say that there is no state. If by capture you mean, are there sectional or interests in society that are trying to influence the state? Certainly, business would try to do that.
Are they successfully infiltrating the state, is what I'm asking.
Everybody would try, and to a certain extent, they would be successful, in the sense that they would manage to achieve influence either a minister or influence a bureaucrat somewhere. But the extent that we should ask, are the resources that are put in our budget of the state on a totality of split go towards corruption and servicing those interests as opposed to actually addressing the needs of the people?
And the answer is no.
The answer is mixed.
Okay.
Look, I think I agree that on a daily basis, various sections of our society tries to influence people, powerful individuals in the state, try to capture it. If you ask, are they successful or not, I don't think they have. The reason you have this noise that has been made by the South African public is because the public could see it for what it is and they're trying to stop it. I don't think they have, because if they have, there will be, you see how the states and the departments themselves crisscross one another in terms of responding to this matter. So I think there's an attempt, and I think it's a concerted, ongoing attempt by various sections and interests, but I don't think they have, because I think South Africans have stood up in defense of their state against any capture.
Very quickly then, the public service charter that you referred to, has everybody signed it? Is it working? Is it helping to improve the public service?
Well, the Department of Public Service Administration can give a full report on that. In our observation, the charter has been signed. So there are, of course, weaknesses with service delivery, in the sense that the measurements of service standards and norms are still being set and negotiated now in order to implement that. So, but it is already working, in the sense that we are agreeing that productivity must go on.
And the unions are supporting it?
We have signed. In fact, the Department of Health, if I were to say, is the one department that has already set up the standard, even have an Office of Standard Compliance. But there's a lot of backlog to be done, because we're concentrating only on one part, and there's a lot of part that we must do, include efficiency of management and infrastructure and the workplaces.
I've got to catch you. The open time is going to have a very serious talk with me for running over on time. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
That's how we come to the end of our program this week. Remember, we continue the conversation on social media. From me, Tembisa Mahele, and the team, good night.
Thank you.